Welcome to Jason's Vegan Kitchen. Today I'm sharing my easy granola recipe, which is oil-free. Stick around until the end for top tips on making this your own.
These are the tools you'll need. Some kind of mini chopper, which is optional, you could just use a knife, a large Ziploc bag, or you could just use a bowl, a large mixing spoon, a large baking tray, and some greaseproof paper. So just start by tearing off a large piece of greaseproof paper to cover your tray. I like to scrumple it up into a ball and then pull it apart again, and it makes it really easy to fit straight in the tray. Your ingredients are all in the description below. So 4 cups of jumbo rolled oats, 1 cup of pecans, half a cup of walnuts, a 1/4 cup of flax, which can be ground or whole, a bag of pumpkin seeds, so about 200 grams or almost a cup, about 150 grams or almost a cup again of sunflower seeds, 1 to 3 tablespoons of cinnamon, and a total of 1 to 2 cups of any dried fruit you happen to have on hand. So today I'm using a mixture of dates, figs, soft apricots and prunes. To save on washing up, I'm mixing everything in a Ziploc bag, which means I can also store the granola at the end in the same bag. But mixing everything in a bowl works perfectly fine also. So add your 4 cups of rolled oats straight into the bag. Then add your cinnamon. I'm using just over a heaped tablespoon here. Then add your flax or linseeds. I'm using about a 1/4 cup here. Then add your sunflower seeds. I've got almost a cup here. Add your pumpkin seeds. I have almost a cup again. And your pecans. So a cup of pecans here. You can either then chop the pecans by hand, or you can do what I'm doing and just use a mini chopper if you have one, until they look a bit like this. And then doing the same with a 1/2 cup of walnuts. So chopping them until they're a bit like this, like large breadcrumbs. Add the nuts to the bag, make sure it's really well sealed, and then start just mixing it around to distribute all of the different dry ingredients. If you're using a bowl, you would just need to go in with a spoon and keep stirring and stirring and stirring it until it all looks the same. Next I'm adding the maple syrup, so start always with about a 1/4 cup and pop it into your bag. Again, seal it and give it a really good shake around. And you want the mixture to gently come together when you press it with your hand. You can see that's not quite happening here, so I add about another 1/8 cup of maple syrup and give it another shake. And when I test it again, you can see that it's starting to clump nicely. So pop all of that onto your lined baking tray and make sure that you spread out the mixture really evenly all the way to the edges, and bake it at 170 degrees Celsius, about 30 minutes, and I recommend only baking for 5 minutes at a time and then giving it a really thorough mix in between. This is what it looks like after the first 5 minutes of baking, and every time I take it out and mix it, I'm just making sure that I'm getting all of the edges stirred into the middle and vice versa to distribute the heat and distribute all of the extra brown and lighter brown areas of the granola. And keep returning it to the oven for 5 minutes at a time at 170 degrees Celsius and then giving it a really good stir. This is what it looks like about halfway through cooking, which is about 15 minutes in for me. And this is what it looks like for me when it's finished cooking, which was about 30 minutes in. You can see that it's fairly evenly golden brown. The pecans are already dark to start with, so you can see here that they are darker than the rest of the mixture. This is how it looks closer up. Now just pop it to one side to cool whilst you prepare your fruits. And all you need to do with your dried fruits is to chop them into bite-sized pieces and then pop them into that bag. I'd suggest about 1 cup of dried fruit in total for this amount. However, I did do 2 cups here and I felt it was just a little too sweet. But it really depends on which fruits you choose and how sweet they are at the time. I always find it easier to work with scissors when I'm chopping up dried fruit, but you could obviously do this with a knife as well. These are small dates, so I could have left them whole, but I like to chop them down because it gives me an opportunity to check that there are no stones inside. I just had a few figs left in the bag here, so I'm using them up. And always remember to take that little stem off the end, it's not very nice to chew on. Then pop your prepped dried fruit into the bag. Then grab your cooled granola. It should be cool enough to touch. I generally just use my hands to get about half of the mixture into the bag. I can then just use the greaseproof paper to roll it up into a bit of a funnel and pour that into the bag as well. And for one last time, just seal up the bag and then gently give it a nice stir, just making sure that all of the fruit which was at the bottom is nicely incorporated throughout the mixture. You can then just store it in the bag if you prefer, but I like to put it into a nice glass jar. Here are some top tips for you. So firstly, watch it like a hawk. The edges burn really easily, so make sure that you stir it every 5 minutes to get perfect even crispiness. Next, to save money, oats are the cheapest ingredient here, so I often double or even triple them to stretch the recipe out a little bit further. I often also swap pecans and walnuts out for nuts which might be cheaper at the time, maybe like almonds, sometimes cashews, or even I take out the nuts altogether and just put extra seeds in to make this nut-free. Next, if you want to reduce the refined sugar option, then you can use date paste instead of maple syrup. It is slightly less sweet, but it makes this completely whole food plant-based with no processed sugar. Serving ideas: this granola is delicious with yogurt and blueberries for a high protein breakfast, with soy milk and banana for a quick morning meal, also even with ice cream as a great crunchy dessert topping. I store it for about 2 weeks in an airtight jar to maintain the crunch, but it never lasts that long in my house.
Thanks for joining me in the kitchen today. If you enjoyed that, please check out another one of my breakfast recipes.